American Rescue Plan. We take you to Capitol Hill as the House nears a final vote on the massive pandemic relief bill.
Jury selection is beginning in the trial of the officer accused of killing George Floyd. I'm Michael George with the latest from court and reaction from the community.
And Meghan Markle's father goes on camera to say his daughter's interview with Oprah was over the top.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
A vote in the House is expected by tomorrow on the president's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. This is KOAM News at Noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Topping our first 7 minutes, Democrats push ahead with the nearly $2 trillion COVID relief package, and they're doing it without the votes of Republican lawmakers. The House is expected to vote Wednesday morning. Republicans have unanimously opposed the bill every step of the way, saying it is too large and untargeted. But the White House is still pushing for GOP support, pointing to public polls showing a majority of Americans, including Republican voters, support the plan. This comes as the CDC issues new guidelines advising fully vaccinated people can now gather in small groups indoors without masks or social distancing. It also includes unvaccinated people as long as they are low risk and from the same household. Well, it's starting to feel like spring outside. Just a little bit. Michael Hayslip joins us with the first look at the forecast.
Tanya, what else does spring bring, though?
Rain.
Yeah, thunderstorm activity. And so we're not only going to have a combination of very warm temperatures here as we work through the middle of the week, but also, too, our fair share of rain by the time it's all said and done. As we turn our attention, live look outside of Television City, it's absolutely gorgeous. Already pressing up to 70 degrees right now, but that wind, it just persists all the way up to almost 30 miles per hour, and our humidity down to 47%. Now, the red flag warning that we had yesterday, it was lifted. Still have a wind advisory for counties in tan, but I'm going to reiterate the fact, coming off of the story that we had yesterday with the Reddings Mill Fire Department, if you're thinking about any outdoor burning, please contact your local FD, ask them what they think, let them give you the recommendations. Let's all be very safe. Avoid the wildfires because the conditions are so ripe for it with the combo of the temperatures, the humidity, and also the strong south wind. Look at this line that we've cut right here. Almost a V shape with our warmer temperatures, and that's because the high pressure system has moved off toward the Atlantic coast, but we're still eyeballing what's in Big Sky Country and the Pacific Northwest. Before we get there, though, delightful afternoon. Yeah, we're just going to have to fight that wind. It's not going to go anywhere. Even tomorrow morning, it's still going to be there. Now, let's talk about tomorrow, because Wednesday night, that's when the rain begins, moves in from the west, and then it gets widespread all the way into Thursday. What it's going to do is take a little sideways tilt on it, and that's going to push us with rain and thunderstorm activity all the way into the weekend. Tanya, coming up here in just a little bit. Let's talk about how much we're looking at, number one, accumulation-wise, and number two, why that stationary low-pressure system just hangs over us for about 4 straight days.
All right, sounds like we got a lot to talk about. Thanks, Michael. Well, after a delay Monday, jury selection began this morning in the murder trial of the Minneapolis police officer charged with killing George Floyd. Michael George joins us with the latest from the courthouse in Minneapolis.
Good morning, members of the jury panel.
Judge Peter Cahill is going forward with jury selection at Derek Chauvin's trial, even while an appeals court considers adding third-degree murder to the charges against the former Minneapolis police officer accused of killing George Floyd.
You have been summoned as potential jurors in the case of State of Minnesota versus Derek Chauvin.
The judge and lawyers from both sides questioned the prospective jurors, who will remain anonymous. The process could take up to 3 weeks.
Do you think that might be a problem, absorbing everything and understanding all the evidence?
I understand, but the only I know what I see in the TV.
Last May, the video of Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes sparked days of protests and calls for racial justice.
With so many people still on edge in this city, officials are taking no chances with security. The National Guard is here, and the courthouse is fortified with barbed wire and concrete barriers.
Marcia Howard is a teacher and retired Marine.
We have always been disenfranchised, over-policed, over-criminalized, over-promised, and under-delivered.
The intersection where Floyd was killed is now barricaded off as a protest zone.
38th in Chicago is like a microcosm of the world that we're trying to ideate, a world without police, where community depends on each other.
Chauvin's defense team is expected to argue Floyd died of a drug overdose rather than from the officer's knee on his neck. Chauvin faces up to 40 years in jail if convicted. Michael George, CBS News, Minneapolis.
The 3 additional former officers who were at the scene are charged with aiding and abetting murder. Their trial is scheduled for August. Work is underway at Joplin's historic Olivia building. This after the city of Joplin and the Downtown Joplin Alliance struck a deal with Bicota REI to save the building after a fire. The city, in a race to save it, also enlisted the help of Blue Haven Homes, a subsidiary with Bicota REI. Sawyer Smith, a developer for the company, says the plan is to turn the building into market rate apartments.
So we want people to know we are taking this very seriously. We're trying to be very responsible with this project. Obviously, we do need to bring it into the 21st century with some modern stuff, but also we're going to try and keep it as historical and keep the original flavor that it had.
Smith says he hopes the new modern design of the apartments will keep them looking up to date. Joplin City Council members discussed the city's action plans for future development at their weekly work session last night. Those plans include addressing declining neighborhoods, homelessness, economic opportunities, crime, and city service levels. City officials hope to get the plans fully worked out by April so they can be ballot measures for the May election.
These action plans drive at the heart of that. It's finally addressing that question about why doesn't the city take care of this, or why doesn't the city do this? I think by addressing these, we are addressing the community's needs. We're proposing to provide a higher level of service to the community, and I think it's serving our community in the best way possible.
City officials also looked at the results of a study about the preferred future of Ewart Pool. That study showed a majority of people would like it turned into a splash park. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, a royal reaction.
Fallout from the Prince Harry and Meghan interview. I'm Tina Kraus with reaction as the British monarchy faces what's being called the worst crisis in decades.
And later, we take you back to the pioneering days. We're making Canada tarts in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. Prince Harry and former actress Meghan Markle's interview with Oprah is considered by many the biggest crisis for the British monarchy in decades. CBS's Tina Kraus is in London with the latest on the royal response.
Prince Charles is holding fire.
Sir, can I ask, what did you think of the interview?
The future king ignored questions from reporters Tuesday about the explosive royal revelations.
I had 3 conversations with my grandmother.
Prince Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah has stirred up a backlash in Britain. On the street.
She's having a pop at my country, and I don't like that.
And on TV.
You continue to trash her.
Okay, I'm done with this.
No.
Journalist Piers Morgan walked off the set during a heated debate about the royals. Pressure is building on Buckingham Palace to respond to Prince Harry and Meghan's claims of racism after the couple said someone in the royal family was concerned what color their baby's skin would be when it was born.
The whole royal family fall under suspicion in terms of the race issue. But there's no doubt that's a very serious allegation and something that Buckingham Palace will want to take extremely seriously.
The London Times reports the palace had prepared a statement on Monday outlining the royal family's love for Harry and Meghan, but the Queen didn't want to rush it out without careful consideration.
When they decide to talk to me, I'll stop talking to the press.
Meghan's estranged father, Thomas Markle, was quick to speak with British TV after watching the Oprah interview from his home in Mexico.
They went way over the top with these stories with Oprah.
While the palace often tries to stay out of controversy by staying silent, royal watchers say these allegations are too serious to ignore. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, told British TV that listening to Oprah's interview was the first time he's heard his daughter's voice since the breakdown of their relationship. Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
Join us today as we cross the Canadian border in search of an international pastry that many say is Canada at its best.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with the 4 states at its best and your complete forecast.
Start with a look at the contiguous 48 as the wind is just blistering from the south up to the Midwest. Of course, the tan's going to indicate wind advisories. We're familiar with what the red is. That's what we had yesterday, a red flag advisory. Now, while that's been lifted, at the same point in time, we still do get stuck with the wind advisory until 6 o'clock. And even if your county's not in the tan, I'm telling you, it is just one of those where you walk outside, feels like you get blown sideways. Look at that, as much as 46 miles per hour is what we saw earlier in Chanute. We're still sitting at 36 miles per hour and 34 in Joplin for the gust tracker. And remember, all these counties in southwest Missouri, technically not part of the National Weather Service wind advisory. So please know, no matter where you are, especially if you're traveling east-west in a high-profile vehicle, that is going to be of concern to you. Sitting at 70 degrees, though, just a marvelous Tuesday for early March. But we know we've got changes on the horizon here as we're not only going to switch our winds, but this whole clean SKYWATCH storm tracker is going to change, and it's going to change dramatically. Interesting of note, our average high for this time of year, about 58 degrees. We actually eclipsed that before we even got to sunrise this morning, and that's because we've got that nice swath of warm air that is all the way on the east side of the Rockies and then makes its way to the mid-Atlantic. Here's what we're going to pay attention to. It's going to be this right here, because it is on its way. And when it does arrive, it's going to be something else. We're going to be talking about dangerously dry conditions to dangerously wet conditions. As we progress through today, look at these overnight temperatures. This is astounding, the fact that we're going to stay in the 60s, and of course we're going to have to put up with the winds while we go at it. But let's go ahead and fast forward to what everybody's anticipating for the latter half of the week. Wednesday night, that's when we begin to generate a little bit of rain. Okay, we're not talking about anything too serious. Heavier rain there up to the northwest. But as we get from Wednesday into Thursday morning, that's where we'll see this thing almost tilt on its side. And when it does, it's going to hang around for quite a while. And it's going to be one of those where we're going to see inches upon inches of rain. As a matter of fact, especially in the central portion, we could be talking about anywhere from 3 to 4 inches of rain by the time it's all said and done. And then after that, cold front's going to work in. We're going to drop down into the 50s. Now, we're not going to be anywhere close to flipping around from the rain to the snow. Don't want anybody to worry about that. But here's your sideways tilt, almost goes horizontal on us. The front and the low, they just don't want to budge. Hang over us, and they do so for a continual number of days. Heavy, heavy rain. That'll also include lightning. It'll include thunder, and it will include flooding. And so what we're talking about as far as our rain tracker goes, we're looking at anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches by Friday. Look at the red swath. That's the 2.5 to 4 category that stretches its way out to the east of southwest Missouri. But even over here, really want to point out, of course, we've got the Neosho River, we've got the Spring River. All these, we're going to have to pay attention to these hydrologic gauges as we get into next week, because everything is going to flow to the south. Temperature-wise, we get a rebound after a chilly, wet weekend, but I think the most important thing, Tanya, is reminding ourselves that by the time we get to Monday, even though we're looking at partly sunny skies, those roads that we know that we commute on every single day, anticipate those to be flooded.
All right, definitely do that. All right, thanks, Michael. Today we head north to find a dessert that you'll definitely want to add to your recipe box. It starts with a pastry that's super flaky and a filling that's buttery rich. Howard shows us how to make Canada tarts in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
As our week-long series of international food favorites continues, today we're celebrating a dessert that's considered Canada's most highly regarded pastry, the butter tart. Once you sink your teeth into one of these bite-sized pastries, you'll know why they're so popular. To make them, we start by preparing a basic pie crust. After letting it chill for a bit, we roll it out just like we would if we were making a pie. Then we cut out circles and place them in a muffin pan. After all the dough is used up, we place a spoonful of raisins or chopped walnuts in each cup and top them with a mixture we made by combining some brown sugar with melted butter, a couple of beaten eggs, corn syrup, apple cider vinegar, vanilla, and a pinch of salt. Then we'll pop these into the oven. In about 20 minutes, they're done. It takes just one bite to appreciate what makes these so popular. The pastry is super flaky. The filling is buttery rich, and together, they're amazing. To get the recipe for what is known as Canada tarts, all you need to do is visit our website or head north to the Canadian border. I'm Howard in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a Canadian way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
And you can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's a look at our 4 state market prices.
Fight the wind and enjoy today, because once we get into Wednesday evening, we're going to have the development of thunderstorm activity that's going to take us into the weekend. And when that does, we're talking about temperatures that will plummet down along with thunderstorm activity. 50s by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday, with the threat of flooding as well.
Well, coming up tonight at 5, gift cards have become widely popular with billions sold every year worldwide, but they remain a favorite among con artists too. We're going to look at the latest scams involving gift cards. Plus, Mercy holds COVID-19 walk-in clinics for eligible residents. We'll hear how the hospital is able to hold these clinics while several eligible residents are still waiting for their vaccines. And local law enforcement tour Urgent Behavioral Solutions, a facility that offers an alternative to emergency rooms for those dealing with behavioral health. Join us for those stories and more tonight at 5.
Want to thank you all for joining us here on the KOAM News at Noon. Tanya and I will see you again tomorrow morning.
And the rest of the team right back here at 5 o'clock.